What year were you born in?
In 1935.
Where were you born?
Newburyport, Massachusetts.
What was the house like where you lived?
It was a duplex, and it was in the middle of the city of Newburyport, not in the commercial district, but residential. And my grandmother lived on one side, and our family, lived on the other side.
Okay. What did your parents do for a living?
My father was a foreman at the Toll Silver Company, and my mother was a homemaker.
How many siblings do you have?
2 sisters.
Did you get along?
Yes, sure, as well as any siblings do.
What did you do for fun or sports?
So,
What did you do for fun or sports?
oh, for sports. Well, in high school, I was on the girls' basketball team, and I played some field hockey. Other than that, we played games that kids played in the streets in those days.
Mm-hmm.
Kick the can, hide and go seek, all the old-fashioned games.
Did you have any pets?
Yeah, we had dogs, and we also had cats. Not together.
What chores did you do around the house?
Around the house, I washed dishes, I did all the housekeeping things that my mother made me do. Or told me to do.
And it was probably even tougher when your father passed away, right? As far as doing chores?
Not really.
No.
No. I was
You were the oldest.
I was only in my young teens, middle teens. And no, I don't think I had to do anything more than any other teenager was expected to do.
Who are your favorite actors or singers?
Okay, for the singers, there was, it was Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, a country singer, Eddie Arnold, he was good. There would have been Doris Day, Dinah Shore. That's it for now.
What were your family's religious views?
We were Roman Catholic.
When did you get your first job?
When?
When and what was your first
My
job?
first, I was in high school, and so I wouldn't even have been 16. And I worked at a small department store in Newburyport called Lincoln's.
Is that right downtown?
Yeah.
Was school strict?
I didn't think so.
Mm-hmm.
In grammar school, we had the nuns, and they were strict as far as discipline and so forth was concerned, but we didn't think of them as being overbearing or anything like that. If they said you do something, you did it.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that.
What were cutting edge technologies of the day?
What did we say?
The TV.
Oh, TV would have been the big one. And the first one we had was a 9-incher in black and white. And then, by golly, we got a 12-incher in black and white.
One more. What about sound at the movies? Didn't that come in at some point?
The singers she asked for.
No, but I mean as far as technology, I thought movies sound came in, like The Wizard of Oz wasn't like the first color movie. And
I
then-
wasn't aware of it because I wasn't going to movies when they were silent.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. Oh,
And a glass of water.
you're wearing me out.
Do you remember listening to President Roosevelt's fireside chats?
No, I don't remember you listening to it because I would have been too young.
Mm-hmm. What was the fashion like during?
The things that kids wore to school would have been body socks and loafers and skirts and blouses and sweaters. And the boys would have worn corduroys or jeans, shirts, just your ordinary street clothes.
What was? Oh wait, no. Did I already ask the license?
No.
At what age did you get your license?
16.
What is it meant when people say World War II brought us out of the Depression?
Because it did lift the economy and there were more jobs available. The men were going into the armed forces. Women had to take over a lot of their jobs, especially in factories. And the economy just, I guess, just changed because of the need for all of the war equipment and arms.
Didn't they do something at the toll factory?
At the what?
Didn't they convert?
The toll did do what they called wall work, but don't ask me what it was. I don't know. I think a lot of factories did things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know anyone who served in World War II?
Yes. We had relatives who were in the war, and neighbors, and sure, well, I knew a lot.
You had an uncle?
Yeah, I had a close uncle.
Do you remember like what life was like during World War II?
What life was like?
Yeah.
Didn't change for me because I was only a little girl under 10.
Do you remember anything about Hitler?
Just what they called propaganda, which was the publicity that they gave him.
But I mean, it wasn't always bad propaganda, right? Didn't he get Man of the Year at Time magazine?
Well, you could be Man of the Year and be the most horrible stinker going.
So he was just known as...
But he was an outstanding personality of his day.
Right. He brought Germany back from their depression.
Yeah, I guess, but then the atrocities that he committed, I mean, trying to exterminate the Jewish race, that was kind of extreme.
Right. But that didn't come out for a while, though, right?
Oh, I think it was known all the way through, of course. It had to be pretty blatant. Because they were taking those people off to the concentration camps by the droves. You know, they just scoop up a
Right.
whole city full of
So you'd get that information in the newspaper? That's how you'd hear about it?
I don't remember that, but it sounds as though it was well known what they were doing.
Okay.
Did you know anyone who went to the Korean War?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Who?
That wasn't Brownie, was it?
The Korean one?
Yeah.
No, he was in World War II.
Who went to the Korean War?
The one I'm thinking of is Bob Paradise, that lived on Merrimack Street.
Okay.
I think he was.
Did he make it back?
Yeah, he made it back.
Yeah.
I think he was in World War II, and then he was probably called back for the Korean War.
I mean, the Korean War just what? That was a threat of communism. That was the.
That was North Korea invading South Korea.
So the communist threat.
Yeah.
So the communists were the North Koreans.
And the Chinese backed them, and they entered into it. And
Well,
didn't the Chinese get into it behind them?
don't
Okay.
I think they did.
Yeah.
Because the U.S. was in the South.
Right.
And then, yeah.
The Chinese probably were, but I mean there was the Russian influence, and then we were on the other side.
What was the Russian influence?
They were the big communists.
Right, but the Russians weren't in the Korean War, though.
Yes, they were.
Well, they would
They
have
were?
been. They would have had a lot of backing up going
okay.
on, I'm sure.
Oh, ammunition and whatnot.
I guess. I mean, I'm only.
Right, but that war lasted a long time. It killed a lot of people, didn't it? It's kind of an unknown war, I guess.
Well, I'm sure there's plenty known about it if you look it up, but I was too young to.
You didn't watch enough MASH.
I was busy graduating from, going to high school and doing kid things.
Mm-hmm. What colleges did you attend?
Colleges,
Yes.
plural. I went to Boston College.
Oh. When you got out of college, did you have a job?
Sure.
Do
You can
remember
talk about that. You can brag about that a little bit.
Huh?
You can brag about BC and then your experience there.
Well, no, I graduated from BC
Top honors.
with top honors, yes. And I went to work for the Boston Visiting Nurse Association. Yeah,
You worked for Children's, right, for a little bit?
I didn't work at Children's, no, I affiliated there during training. I affiliated in several hospitals, depending on what the specialty was that we needed to have in our training.
Right.
Good ones.
And that was that was very hands-on, wasn't it? That was.
Oh, that of course. That's what nurses do. Or they did then,
Yeah.
before the computer came out.
Right.
Computer just fell asleep. Just press the little music. Okay. When did you meet your husband?
I met him while I was going to college. I think it was 1954.
How many years later did you get married?
We got married in 58.
And did you buy a house after, or?
We didn't buy a house right after we got married because my husband had to go into the Marines. He had to do his military duty. So he went into officers training school, and
That was down in.
we started off living in Quantico, Virginia.
And then when did you have your first kid?
'59.
I know, it's right there. 1959. 1 year after we were married.
Well, gonna say, you were in North Carolina, right? Still in Quantico.
No, we were in North Carolina by then.
Okay, it's not Quantico?
No.
Where
Your
was that?
father
Oh, Camp Lejeune.
went down to Quantico, and then we got married during that time.
Right.
And then that summer he got switched from Quantico to Camp Lejeune. And when Eric was born, that's where we were.
So Camp Lejeune was what? Officers? Is that? What's the difference? Quantico.
Lejeune is another Marine base. Quantico, they do the officers' candidacy, the officers' candidate schooling,
Oh.
and then they send the men wherever they're going to be stationed.
Oh, I see. So okay.
Yeah.
As an officer, he went to Camp Lejeune.
So right, he was a second lieutenant when we went down there.
Right.
What was it like raising your first child?
What was it like?
Raising your first child? Yeah.
Well, it was an experience I had never done before. It was a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
I love babies.
How many years later did you have your second and third child?
I had my second child in 1960, and my third child was in 1961.
Is he the youngest?
Yes.
Are you the youngest?
Yes.
What?
Oh,
I'm the baby.
Did
yeah.
You didn't know that?
No.
She didn't know I was the baby. Just like you are.
What did you and your family do for activities?
what?
Did you travel? Or
Oh, we had great trips. Plum Island, Canopy Lake. Right?
Well, we went to the beach.
To the beach.
We went to amusement parks.
Right, Canopy Lake. We had a
We went to. We take a couple of weeks sometimes and go to a beach vacation
or a lake. That's right.
or a lake. Yes, that's right.
What else did we do? We went to movies a lot. We went to outdoor movies. What are they called?
Drive-ins.
Drive-ins.
Drive-in movies.
Yeah. Dr. Zhivago.
I don't know.
We went to sporting events. We went to the Ice Capades. Remember that?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the kids were in sports. The boys both played hockey. Karen did figure skating, and they all loved skating.
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
Can you write that?
Hmm?
It's going dark again.
No. Still going. You want to test it to make sure it's working?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, when did you move? I forgot to ask. To Manchester, New Hampshire.
What?
Did you
Right. They moved from Quantico back up to Newburyport.
to Manchester?
Brooks Court.
Yeah, we got married in Newburyport, then we went down to Quantico,
Where's Quantico?
which is in Virginia,
Okay.
right outside Washington D.C.
Right. Okay.
And that's officers' candidate school. And after that was completed, Bernie was sent to Camp Lejeune, and he spent the rest of his tour of duty at Lejeune. And after he was discharged, he stayed in the Marine Reserve. So he did his military obligation. And then we came back up north and lived in Newburyport, where he got a job, and that job transferred him up here to Manchester.
Okay. Got it.
So that's how he landed in Manchester.
And what did you do for jobs?
What did I do?
In Manchester.
Well, Bernie worked for Travelers Insurance before he branched off on his own. And I was a housewife and mother for the early years of the kids' lives. And when they had some sort of independence, I went back to work part-time, and mostly on weekends when one of us was home. And that's the way I went.
As a nurse, right? As a registered nurse?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that was at the nursing home. That was at Hanover Hill.
Up here, yeah.
Do you remember any big technologies when your kids were around? Kids were young.
Any big technology?
What changes were there?
Well, television was the big thing.
Right, we didn't get our first color TV. We were the last ones in the neighborhood to get color, weren't we?
I don't remember.
Well, the technology.
You probably were, because we were poor.
Well, probably. What technologies? Computers didn't come out until...
What?
Computers didn't come out really until now.
Computers have been around for a long time, but they weren't.
The only thing I can think of was the hand calculator. That was big.
That would have been the rudiments of
Right.
this kind of technology.
But that was something fairly big, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if, like the stereo, is that considered technology?
Well, it's all technology, but it's. I mean.
The microwave oven, how about that?
Yeah.
That was one.
The calculator, isn't that
Calculator.
technology?
Yeah. Well,
It can be very simple.
Right.
And they develop into.
No, I mean things like the washing machine and dryer were out. They came out in the 50s?
The first washing machine that I remember was the one where you
Don't say a washboard.
no, well, washboard was before the washing machine with the ringers.
Right.
And the ringers started off, I guess, with a hand crank, and then became more.
But the machines
Developed.
came out in the 50s? The actual
No, must have been before that.
40s and 50s.
And then the dryers came out. Before that, it was a good old clothesline.
Right.
That was when laundry was laundry, real nice laundry,
Right.
fresh air. Well, I don't know, loads and loads of things were developed.
I have one. Air conditioning.
Well, yeah. An improvement on a fan, which was
Right.
before it.
Can you hear that?
Oh, I know. The ice box. Do you remember?
No.
it? Well, I do, so that counts. You don't know what an ice box is?
No.
Before they had refrigerators, you had this insulated box with roughly the size of a refrigerator, and they put big chunks of ice in the top part, and that's what supplied the coldness. Now it's electricity that does it, but before
Yeah.
that it was ice.
Mhm.
And they used to cut it out of ponds and keep the ice frozen in these ice houses. And that lasted quite late, all the way up through World War II, especially in vacation places.
Huh.
If you went to Plum Island, you might have an ice box
Right.
to keep your food cold.
Okay.
And that was before the refrigeration freezer period.
Right. So you get your hunk of ice and throw it in there, and
Yeah, and they're probably still around in some areas, for all I know.
huh.
Do you like bring them around with you?
No, they were big. They were big units, right? You just
They just had
Yeah.
them at Plum Island.
They what?
well, Plum Island was
What was it like back then?
it was cottages, right?
Yeah. Well, before that, people's houses, there was a family that lived next to us, in the next house to us. You'd put a card in the window that would say ice on it, so that the iceman who was making his rounds with his truck would see if you had your card in the window, then you wanted ice, so he'd deliver it to you.
Well, we had to go get our water. I remember when we were kids, we had to go get the water.
The pump, yeah, the pump was preceded the faucets.
Right.
Sure, those cottages had pumps instead of faucets. That's an example of development of technology right there.
Yeah.
Did you guys have milkmen?
Yes, we did. Remember the milk box?
That's so cool.
We had a small. Remember the silver box we had outside of our house, and the guy would
But
drop.
that was nothing.
Yeah,
Delivering milk.
that was at 104 Alexander Drive.
Before people were lucky enough to be able to go to a supermarket and buy stuff all the time, you had your milk delivered by the milkman.
And wasn't it like when the milk is like separated from like,
Oh, she can tell you about
and you
that.
have to like shake it?
Well, the homogenized milk is
Yeah.
what we have now. The milk doesn't separate.
Mhm.
They shake it up in such a way that it stays, the fat things stay distributed through the rest of the milk. But when I was growing up, you'd have the cream on the top
Mm-hmm.
of the milk bottle, which people would want to put on their cereal, put in their coffee, use as a cream, and you'd drink the bottom part.
Was it better?
Wasn't one part like chunky?
Depended on how
It
much
was the top.
Yeah.
Huh?
It was creamy. Was what it was.
Yeah, the cream rose to the top.
Like creamy, like. What's
Well, you
it-
know what cream is like.
Yeah.
Not like half
but
and
how
half.
is that like separate from? I don't.
It wasn't like half and half though. It was thick. Was it like whipped cream?
No, it was the fat globules
Like
would
chunks.
rise to the top.
But not chunks though. It was creamy.
It was creamy, yes, because you used it. You poured it out.
Right. I can't. Yeah, we just never seen it.
You pour it into a cream pitcher or a container where you could use that heavier part of the milk
Right.
for richer things. Like coffee, people like cream in their coffee instead of milk.
Or on the cereal.
Maybe if you're quick, you might get some for your cereal.
Yeah.
Where was I? What do you remember about the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Well, I remember that era because the family,
No, we were in Manchester.
Our little family had just gotten out of the Marine Corps at around that time. And then that missile crisis came to a head. And I was, a young mother with 3 little kids. And I was very upset. We had just come up from North Carolina. And that's where the Marines took off to do maneuvers, which would be down near that missile sight. And all I can think of is my babies are not going to grow up. They'll never survive because we were right in line with where the missiles would have been targeting the East Coast, and that had me shook. So.
That came out on the news?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, because the Russians were moving missiles over to Cuba to set up to
Right.
threaten our coast, and our coast was us. I mean, Plum Island, that's our coast.
Right. Oh, that's scary.
So, yeah, I remember the missile crisis.
Can you hit it?
Still going?
Did you like President Kennedy as a president?
Oh, of course I did. I'm Irish, partly Irish, and I'm Catholic. I haven't.
Right, but he was very liberal too, wasn't he?
How do I know? I didn't pay any attention to politics.
Oh, Dad. I guess Dad was more.
He would know that part of it. But I'm sure.
From Massachusetts too, yeah. Right?
Yeah, and he was from Massachusetts, and he was young, and he had a kind of a glamorous wife.
He's good looking.
Huh?
He's good looking.
Yeah. Yeah, he was very appealing.
Do you remember the Neil Armstrong being the first person on the moon?
Oh, that's a good one.
I remember the moon landing in Armstrong, yeah. Yeah.
What year was that? 68?
I
Is it that
couldn't-
late?
Could have been.
Yeah, I vaguely
Do you
remember that.
remember?
I don't. I mean, no, that's a blur to me. But it was on TV as much as could be on TV.
I wouldn't even guess.
But that was a big deal, though, wasn't
Well, yes.
it? Yeah.
Landing on the moon?
Right. It was only like 7 or 8.
Heavens.
Do you remember how you felt or where you were when JFK was assassinated?
When what?
When John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Well, pretty much I go, yes. Yeah, that was a startling thing to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, and I remember I was on Brooks Court. A friend of mine had just
The Newburyport, right?
had just left, and I had the TV on, and Cronkite came on.
The famous scene,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, you were the only one in the house?
Well, you kids. I think
Oh.
I was getting you ready to take naps or something.
Yeah. Was it in the morning? Or when was it?
No, it would have been afternoon, after noon time.
Right.
Yeah, that everybody remembers that one.
Do you remember when, was it his brother, Robert Kennedy, was assassinated?
Yes.
Yeah,
I remember that.
We were on Brooks Court then.
No. Robert, in 68.
Yeah,
We were at 104, Alexander Drive.
that's what I was thinking.
Right. I had the TV on. I was watching TV.
No, I'm thinking, I'm picturing myself on Alexander Drive,
Right.
and Brooks Court came out of my mouth.
Right.
That was a typographical error.
What's Brooks Court?
That was Newburyport. That was our first house in Newburyport. I'll show you that house someday. But 104 Alexander Drive was Manchester.
Oh.
Do you remember Martin Luther King happening? That assassination?
Not like the Kennedys.
Yeah.
But I mean, it certainly is that's etched in my memory too. What the news of it.
How about the whole Civil War struggle? The civil rights
Civil
struggle.
rights.
Well, I think in this area we don't quite appreciate it. Appreciate it because we don't understand what that situation was in the South.
Right.
Mhm.
Because up here, your races are not mixed and never have been. But down there is a totally different story.
Well, the only thing we saw of it up here was the busing in Boston. We used to see that on TV. But still, we were kind of.
I don't
Wasn't
think
that like
they-
the Freedom Riders or whatever?
I don't think they bust in Boston.
Remember that whole thing?
I don't think so.
Oh, was
Heck,
it?
I worked in the south end of Boston where everything was all mixed in one area.
Yeah.
And you had all the different, well, the two races, all different nationalities. And it was just a big city with a lot of people and
Right.
a lot of different people. That's why I went into the VNA, because it was so fascinating to see all that.
Huh.
In Newport, I guess I can remember like about 2 black families in high school,
Right.
and they were black. That was the difference between them and the rest of the world as far as we were concerned.
Yeah. Well, that's similar to your situation.
What?
Well, Masco, very few.
Yeah.
You know, Topsfield, there are no black people.
Look anywhere around us.
Right. This thing has a limit.
Oh, I don't want my picture.
You're beautiful. Stop it.
No, I look like a scum.
Stop
I'll put that in the transcript. What was it like raising a family during the Vietnam War?
I remember every night the news would come on, and it would be Cambodia or Vietnam, the map. It was just a lot of news about it.
Well, yeah. What was it like? It was like it is every single day now. Except the television would tell you about it.
And it dragged on, and I think people were getting sick of it. And then, you know, you had the younger generation revolting against it. And then you had, you know, Dad's generation.
Okay, no problem.
Well,
It was just a lot of, it was polarizing, I think.
it was something that it was far away. It didn't affect anybody unless you had somebody involved in it.
Right.
Then you would feel the pain of that war.
Well, there was Cousin Hoyt. He was there, right? Didn't he go?
I don't know.
Yeah, he went. And he came back, and he had his views on it. And
Well, he would have been directly involved in it.
right. He was at
What
that
did that
age.
have to do with us? Nothing.
No, but we, you know, during holidays we'd see him, and
I mean, if he had been wounded or killed,
right.
it would affect you more deeply. But
Right, but
but
Dad
it
had
was
very
something
strong
far
views.
away. It was something that really wasn't touching the lives of anybody that was living here.
But the media didn't have an impact on you? Like seeing the atrocities on TV? Wasn't that the first war that was brought out?
Oh,
that way?
probably. That's when the media might have started getting so terribly intense.
Right.
But they do that with everything now.
Well, now they do. But I'm saying back then that was really the first conflict you saw.
Yeah. That would have been brought into your homes.
Right.
You might see World War II clips of that in the movies, but on film.
Well, it was more glorified, World War II. I mean, we were fighting against an evil cause.
Yeah.
Vietnam was different.
Well, the reasons for any war is ridiculous. It's atrocious.
Yeah. Want a glass of water? or something? You're just gonna be
Nothing
doing-
is going to change the situation.
Making you work so hard.
Did the Watergate scandal of 1973 change your view of government?
I suppose it would have to. Yeah. That Nixon scandal was a
Did that shock you when that happened?
I
What
guess
was
it
that
did.
again?
For the little I was involved in politics, I think I was shocked about that. Yeah.
And what happened during that? What came up?
I couldn't tell you. I could not tell
He
you.
was accused of taping his opponents, correct?
Like I say, I cannot tell you. I don't know.
But it was enough of an offense to get impeached. I mean,
What
he-
it, yeah, he took him out of the presidency.
right. And it shamed the presidency for the first time ever, really.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty sad, yeah.
But you have that kind of a scandal, and then you have the means of publicizing it like we do these days, and it was really, it did.
Oh, it was endless, I remember. It was just, again, one of those things that was on the news every night,
Yeah,
and you had strong opinions on both sides. And
yeah.
it was very polarizing, I think. You know, there was Nixon, and then there was the other side.
Yeah.
How did he get caught? How did they find out?
How did he get caught?
Were there tapes involved?
There were tapes, yeah. And they found the tapes. They found he had made tapes of illegal tapes, and they found them.
Of like meetings and stuff?
Yes,
Mm.
yes.
And what actually was the crime?
What was the crime?
He did something bad, and it was on tape.
I guess that was illegal. Just
But now we don't even know.
he
what-
denied that whole happening, I guess. And he was,
What do you remember about the energy crisis? And do you remember the gas lines?
The what?
the energy crisis, the gas prices going way up. I kind of remember that.
I really can't even make a comment on that.
Well, what about, I mean, the price of gas before it was what? Below $1? And then it shot way up, didn't it?
It probably did, but these things wouldn't affect my mind because my mind was on other things.
But you were still driving around 3 crazy kids, weren't you?
Well, I would have been doing just exactly what I had to do, no matter what the damn gas cost.
Yeah. But it really didn't change lifestyles at all?
It probably did if you drove long distances. If your father who had who was on the road, I suppose it must have affected him.
Right. But it affected the prices of insurance, food, didn't
Yeah.
really have an effect, a rippling effect?
I suppose, but I didn't control the money in the house,
Right.
so I just did my job,
Right.
and I was up to here in my job.
Yeah, that's true, he was busy.
When did you become a grandmother?
When did I ever become a grandmother?
That was 1984. Right? That's when Dustin was born?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be.
84, 85.
You were married in '83.
No, I wasn't married until 88. Karen's Dustin.
Oh.
I don't have a Dustin.
Okay. She was married in '83,
I think so.
and he would have been married in. Yeah.
Next question.
It was, how did you feel about being a grandmother?
How did you feel about being a grandmother? You were thrilled.
Was I thrilled?
I think you were.
Well, it was exciting. I mean, she was. My child is having a child. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. We'd come a long way, actually.
I don't even know what the Indian hostage crisis is.
Do you remember the Iranian hostage crisis?
Oh, Irene.
Jimmy Carter, we didn't hear much about that. But it was like a handful of Americans that were taken by those crazy...
Al Qaeda.
No. Well, they probably were, but the Iranians.
Yeah.
And they held them in the, they grabbed them from the embassy. And they just, when Carter was in office, I don't really remember that much about it, but they kind of,
I don't.
But it was one thing that Carter was really criticized for, not being able to get to free the hostages.
Well, did they ever get out?
They did when Reagan got elected.
Okay.
Remember that? As soon as he got elected, they freed him.
I remember thinking that it was really kind of absurd to have Reagan, a movie star, become the president of the United States.
Yeah, he was a movie star.
It was?
Yeah. That is, yeah, that's kind of...
Like a popular one?
Was it? How popular was he?
Oh, he was a big name.
He was?
Sure.
He just decided he wanted to become president?
Yeah, I don't know how he went from there to politics.
I think there's been a lot of interaction between Hollywood and politicians.
Yeah.
Was he a
But
good president?
Yeah, I think he came out as being viewed as a good president, right, Reagan?
I think so. I think there seems to be more good.
Yeah, he was likable.
Yeah, and he didn't say, on hindsight, from what I see, not that I know anything about him, but the impression is that he was smarter than I gave him credit for.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was responsible for ending the Cold War, right? Remember that? Berlin, take down that wall? That all happened during his...
yeah.
And yeah, he was able to wait out the Russians, and they eventually kind of imploded.
But I think the Kennedys were pretty much, involved with Hollywood too.
Oh, right.
Really?
Yeah, he was connected to Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, that's right.
He was having an affair with Marilyn.
Really?
Yeah.
I never knew that. Good for him.
So the father was a generation before that. He was friendly with the Hollywood people.
Yeah. Well, he was a bootlegger too, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a closer world back then.
What are you looking at?
Let's make sure, because it stops, at a certain point. I ran it this morning and it stopped after a while.
After how long?
I think an hour.
What is it at?
It's like at 40-something minutes.
What am I looking at? At the end of the Cold War, do you think everyone was relieved?
Say that again?
At the end of the Cold War, like when Russia finally
Yeah.
went under, I guess there wasn't much relief. I mean, during the Cold War, there were some scary moments, right?
Yeah, things would heat up every so often.
Right.
The biggest one in my mind being that Cuban Missile thing. And what was the question when it ended?
Well, was it a relief? I don't remember it being anything.
I think when you look back on it, you think, well, it's a good thing we did get out of those hot spots the way we did,
Right.
because just the mere fact that they were heading to the U.S. with the missiles
Right.
to shoot in our area, that was a sobering thought.
And I guess on that note too, there was always the buildup of nuclear weapons, the two superpowers.
Yeah.
So when that ended, it kind of.
Well, who says that's ended, though? I don't
think you have the same buildup. I mean, I think the problem now is you have all these countries now that have these weapons, and
Yeah,
there's that worry.
true.
Still
So-
going?
Yeah. Yes. We're at 51 minutes.
Okay. Where do we go next? Oh, do you remember Clinton's presidency, and how did you feel about his affair?
How do I feel about who?
That's a great question. Clinton.
Clinton.
How do I feel about Clinton?
Yeah.
He's a pleasant-looking man.
That's always a woman's reaction.
I don't feel about him one way or the other.
What did you think about the affair? Did that shock you at all?
Oh, yeah, I think they've got a heck of a nerve when they do those things. What do you think I feel?
But do you think he was a good president? I mean, I don't know. He was, I guess, a very bright man, or is a bright man. But he was just,
I don't think one way or the other about him because I don't think I paid him too much attention to him.
right. Well, I can't really, during his presidency, what happened? I mean, I think he brought the economy back. He was responsible for kind of getting us out of the 80s slump.
Well, all right, that's a plus.
But his social activities really hurt him.
But men, when they become famous and they're halfway good looking like he is,
Yeah,
they think they're entitled.
I guess.
That's not going to go on. You better edit this.
That
really.
might go. This is good stuff.
Next.
Next.
What do you remember about 9/11?
Oh, I remember when that happened. That was scary.
Were you watching that morning?
No, I think Rosemary called me up and to tell me that was happening.
You were in
So
your apartment?
it took a while to kind of
Yeah.
find out what was going on with that one.
You weren't working, were you?
No, I was home.
Mm.
Yeah, that was.
Did you believe it when you saw it?
Yeah. What did you
well,
think
I had to
it
believe
was?
it because there it was.
But it was surreal, though, wasn't it? Wasn't it? I don't know. I just thought it when I was watching it. I just.
You were watching it
Yeah, we had it on.
as it happened.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, the
think,
first one, no. But then, you're sitting watching this flaming building, and then the second one came in.
Yeah.
You know.
What did you think it was at first?
I don't know. What did
What?
you think?
What?
Did you? Well, I mean, were you watching it on TV? At all?
As that happened?
Yeah.
No, Rosemary called me. I think I turned on the TV after she told me it was on.
After the first one hit, or both?
After the first one.
So you were watching it before
I
the
think
second
I
one.
must have been. I think I had to have been.
Can you check if it's still going?
Yeah. Yep.
Almost out of questions. Since America has changed so much over the years, do you think it's changed for the better?
Well, of course, in a lot of ways, yes.
Any specific?
Yeah, what's one?
Well, I think people are a lot more aware of things now than they were a while back, because there's more contact with people simply because of the communication.
So when you
That's
say
what-
aware, just more informed
More, yeah.
for the better?
Well, yeah, I think so. Yes, I do think so. I think it's a lot. There's a lot of negativism also.
As a result of that, right?
Yeah, but overall, it's got to be for the better.
Do you think technology has changed it for the better too?
Hmm?
Do you think technology has changed it for the better too?
Well, that's really debatable. Yeah, it pushes for the better, because it's amazing how bland the world and humanity was before technology, and now all the amazing things that can be done. But I think it's also very dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, I think medically is one example.
Mm-hmm.
Just medically, how far advanced we are now.
I'm thinking just the communication. I think
Right.
that has. It's so astounding in so many ways, but it also is so dangerous because it's a mind shaper.
Right. Do you think the medical advances, though?
Do I think the medical advances?
Yeah, in your time have.
Oh, yeah, they're astounding.
Yeah.
Definitely. But there's a lot of room for much improvement in that too.
Right.
I don't have any other
Now you can do a song and dance.
Boy.
No, it's fun to hear that. I mean, it's just,
Now, what do you? Is that's done?
one. Yep.
I think so. Should I stop it?
Yeah. Make sure you save it.
Can
Look,
you
come over
e-
here.